So I've recently moved into coaching, so I've been a teacher for 20 years with primary school aged children and secondary school children, and I've done a lot of, if you like, teaching and then coaching outside of school with teams and sports and individuals, particularly athletics and cross country, and through some of the other consultancy work that I do in education. I do a lot of training of adults and tutoring of adult courses. So this was a bit of a no-brainer for me, just to keep my hand within the sport, and because I really do love helping people. Ultimately, I want to help people achieve their goals, and I really enjoy seeing people achieve their goals. I guess my approach is to keep it simple. So a little uh, approach called KISS, which I've seen in various different places that I've worked. So keep it simple, silly. So keep everything short and simple. We don't overcomplicate, and because I mainly work with people who have full-time jobs, families, and are just trying to achieve their goals within their hobby of running or cycling or duathlon. That's a really important approach. But also the other, I guess, USP that I have, and approach that I have, is around understanding the challenges and pressures that people who work and have families have in trying to achieve their goals, aspirations, challenges. So my approach is a very empathetic approach to helping people overcome the time constraints, the energy constraints, um, and all of the other little barriers that are thrown in their way, like illness and etc., that are thrown in their way as sort of busy people who live in the real world. So, because I've had a lived experience for 20 years and with a young family in the last few years, I feel as though I'm able to offer a very flexible approach to working with people like myself to achieve their goals. It's a bit of a cliche, but the biggest um, advice I can give with training and recovery is consistency and listening to your body, and I'm sure everybody says that. And really, the only way to do that is if you're incredibly good at listening to your own advice, or you have a really good coach who knows you really, really well and knows when it's time to rest, when it's time to challenge you, and when it's time to ease off a little bit. So consistency is the key, and you only get consistency through being healthy and injury free, and not being too exhausted to be able to do stuff. So having really well structured training. I mean, a coach makes a big difference, because a coach takes all of the emotion out of decision making. A coach just sees what you're doing, how you're feeling, according to your sort of feedback, your times, or the power you're putting out if it's cycling, and is able to make an unemotional judgment about what the next step should be. So if that should be, if was planned for the next day, a hard session, and you've been struggling for a few days, or you've got a bit of a cold coming on, you've made a note about that and you talk to them, then for the athlete, it would always be difficult to make the right decision and say, no, I think I need to rest, or I need to go really easy, I need to bin that session. But for a coach, it's really clear that they can, and they take all of that sort of stress away from you. Consistency is the key, staying healthy and injury free. If you've got a coach, listening to their advice, knowing when to ease off, when to rest and recover. And I think for me, as an older athlete now, because I'm 41 coming on 42, I've recognised the importance of just full rest days, where you might have them a lot more regularly than usual, and you just need to just really feel the benefit. It not necessarily the next day, but 3, 4, 5 days later, a week later, you realise you've been able to keep going just because your body did recover for 36 hours. So my top tips to runners of all abilities and kinds to maximise their training are, I guess, three things: consistency, um, progression or progressive challenge, and appropriate rest and recovery. So consistency meaning being able to find out what and repeat a level of training and effort and energy and time that you can do repeatedly over a lengthy period of time, a couple of months if you like, without massive breaks due to injury or illness. That's really key. So any significant breaks in training for reasons that are not just rest and recovery will have an impact over time on your progression. So then within that, we need to make sure that the training you're doing is progressively challenging. So not just doing the same thing consistently week in, week out. There are, we can progress by distance, by time, by speed, the things that we do, the training sessions that we're doing, and it just needs to be little increments of approximately 10% every week, whether that be in distance or time or speed, to help us reach the goals that we're aiming for. And then finally, listening to our body and taking appropriate rest and recovery when it's needed, when you feel like it's needed, or when the coach tells you it's needed, will really help you maximize the benefits of training. If anyone was interested in what I do, then I basically offer personalised one-to-one coaching, really, which involves a free consultation, spending a lot of time getting to know people and finding out whether we can work together and whether I am the right person to help them. And if not, I'll try and signpost them to somebody who might be able to. I do it around for runners specifically, or duathletes, so runner bikers, or just the running part of their duathlon, if they already had support with the bike, very personalised, hands-on approach, done online and with phone calls and Skype calls, but also where possible some face-to-face interaction, it's not off the shelf sort of training programs. It's working with the athlete to determine the best, most appropriate way forward on a day-to-day basis. Really, we call it responsive coaching. So rather than planning out the year ahead with all the goals and in mind, and what the putting in periodization for that, I think the approach we have, based on the fact that we work with real people who have real jobs and families, it's about working with them very closely on a day-to-day basis to determine the next steps and the progressions in towards their longer-term goals. So anybody who's interested can get in touch via so you can message me via Instagram or Facebook, or get in touch directly via email.